Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare One second. So we're missing Jean and Claudine and Serby, but they messaged me and they said they weren't going to make it. So is there anybody else we're missing? Oh yeah, Tyler. Tyler's in Seattle. He'll be back tomorrow. So we're missing 1, 2, 3, 4. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I think, yeah. And then there's Rocky. She's here in San Diego. She's watching it from a distance, and Jeff from San Francisco, and then there's one other person. Huh? Yeah, there's one other person. Jeff. Okay, I just said Jeff and Rocky. And there's one other person. Oh yeah, Christian. So he said he couldn't make it today because it's Father's Day. Then, but next week I think he'll make it. He kind of started late, but all right. Okay, so today we are continuing, and we are on lesson 2. Excuse me, lesson 3. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshulanmaditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him. So lesson 3 is entitled Srila Prabhupada ISKCON Founder Acharya. Lesson topics: function of the founder Acharya, Prabhupada, the empowered representative of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, ISKCON in the future. So function of the founder Acharya. To found. To give a basis or firm support to. To ground in a subject of instruction. To set up or establish for the first time an institution, etc., with provision for its perpetual. So Srila Prabhupada, he, of course, got the order from his guru, Maharaj Srila he got the order from his guru, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, to preach Krishna consciousness throughout the English-speaking world. So that was what year? 1922, something like that. And he was a young man. He was like 20, I think about 24 years old. So then he didn't he didn't practically come till he was 70, quite some time later. And while he was here in America, in New York for the first year, he was regularly sending letters to his different god brothers. Means the persons who were initiated also by Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He was sending letters, and he was asking for help. He was saying, please send some brahmachari, please send some mridangas, some kartals, please you come personally. We want to establish a temple here in New York City. And he was sending letters, many of them, and they weren't responding to him. Or they would say that, in essence, they didn't want to help him. So then, Srila Prabhupada, he just started things himself. And he gathered a few disciples, and then he established International Society for Krishna Consciousness. He incorporated it. And he wanted to be referred to as the founder Acharya. So Acharya, we discussed that a little bit, right? Teach by example. But also the founder, because, so in other words, no one besides him will ever have that title within ISKCON, founder. This makes sense. I mean, right? Founder Acharya. So it was a big thing for him, and on his books, right? If you look at all of his books, it says His Divine Grace, AC, which is standing for not after Christ. I thought that actually when I first saw the book, I thought, oh, AC stands for after Christ. Yeah. So it doesn't stand for after Christ, but it stands for Abhay Charanaravinda, which his birth name was Abhay Charan, which Abhay is fearless, right? And Charan means feet, so fearless at the lotus feet of Krishna, or fearless at the feet of Krishna. Which Abhay Charan Aravinda, Aravinda means lotus, so the lotus feet of Krishna. He's fearless at the lotus feet of Krishna. So his guru just added that name, that part, Abhay Charan Aravinda. Bhakti is bhakti devotion, Vedanta knowledge. The end of Anta is the end. So what's the end of all knowledge? Bhakti, devotion to Krishna. Bhakti Vedanta, Swami, one who controls her senses. Prabhupada. So Prabhu is master and Pad means feet. So it means that he is that personality which all other great masters, they sit at his feet. They sit at his, in other words, he's so exalted that great masters sit at his feet to hear from him. Or Prabhupada also means one who takes the position of the Lord. Doesn't mean that he's God, but it means that he's a representative of God. And he's so powerful. He takes that, like the external manifestation of the super soul, the spiritual master. So how Srila Prabhupada he wanted this term on all of his books. He wanted himself to be known by this founder, also Acharya. Now this Prabhupada, it came after he came to America. And it was interesting how it came about. There was this disciple of his, Govinda Dasi, and they would always call Prabhupada Swamiji. So then her husband started calling her Govindaji, something like that. There was some, and then Prabhupada actually said, well, this G is actually third class. It's not the most respectable term because it's a little informal. G is like an affectionate, term. Sometimes they say Balaram G or. So so she said, well, we want to know what's the most first class name. What do you call the spiritual master? And he said you could call the spiritual master different things. Guru Dev, Guru Maharaj, and then he mentioned Prabhupada. And then she said, well, okay, well, what's the best? And then he said, well, Prabhupada's the best. And she said, okay, well, we're going to start calling you Prabhupada then. And then throughout the whole movement, devotees started calling, instead of Swamiji, they started calling him Prabhupada. But it was everybody was used to Swamiji, so it was difficult for them to change to Prabhupada, but eventually they did that. And Prabhupada accepted that term, and he had to write it on his books, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. But when Prabhupada went to India, his godbrothers were criticizing him because Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, their guru, he also went by the name Prabhupada. So they said, oh, you're taking our guru's name. Now, of course, this name is for so many great acharyas, teachers in our line. Like, for example, one of the direct disciples of Lord Chaitanya is named Rupa Goswami Prabhupada. So in other words, our Srila Prabhupada having that name is, not like offensive like they were claiming or something. But anyways, you have Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada's guru, then you have Srila Prabhupada, and then you have so many of other disciples of Bhakti Siddhanta. Some of them were a little, they didn't really agree with Srila Prabhupada so much about certain things, and they were a little, upset with him, going by Prabhupada, and also he changed a few things or he did things that were just not ordinary. For example, when he came to America, he set up a women's ashram in the temple, which in India at the time no one ever did. So sometimes people, they criticize Srila Prabhupada. Oh, he's what's that word? Misogynist? What is it? Misogynist? Yeah. It means they don't like women, right? Is that what it means? Is it? I think so, yeah. Woman hater. Anyways, they criticize Prabhupada for that sometimes, people. For some statements he may have made in his books, etc. About. But we see practically from what he did is that he came to America and he set up women ashrams, men and women's ashrams. Of course, they're separated, but they're in the same temple, which his godbrothers in India, they thought, oh, that's just too much. You can't do that. That's against the policy, And he also performed marriage ceremonies. His disciples, he would perform the ceremony. For sannyasi, for renunciate, they don't have anything to do with marriages. But he did it because he was the only one around to do it. So he made, he was bending these rules for preaching. And also another thing he did is I mean, um, traditionally, within India, it's women would not be given the Gayatri mantras. Uh, in other words, there's such a thing as there's first initiation, right? Then there's second initiation. Second initiation is where someone is allowed to go on the altar. So traditionally, there was the idea that, yeah, just men would get second initiation and be given the opportunity to go on the altar. But when Srila Prabhupada came to America, he started initiating some of his men, with second initiation, giving them the Gayatri mantras, which the Gayatri mantra, it's chanted morning, noon, and evening, and it's meditation on the spiritual master, on Krishna, Lord Chaitanya. So these special mantras. So he was to the men, and some of the women, they didn't show up for the ceremony. You know why? Because they also wanted to get second initiation. So there it was kind of like a protest. We're not showing up for the ceremony. So Prabhupada understood this, and he said, okay, we're going to give you the mantras too. And he gave him the mantras. Amazing, actually. I I mean, that hasn't, yeah, it hasn't been done in history, but he did it. And it's still, yeah, it's not that that stopped either. I mean, now gurus now they also give mantras. Um, so he, in other words, he was doing all of these things, bending the rules, or bending these different concepts that have been done, traditionally for the spreading of Krishna consciousness, and according to what he understood he needed to do. But his godbrothers were really upset about that, actually, many different things. But that's a whole, we don't get into that much right now. But so yeah, founder Acharya, uh, A.C. Bhakti, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Um, so here there's another writing exercise. It says, list below ways Srila Prabhupada functions as ISKCON's founder Acharya. So some ways that you could think of in which Srila Prabhupada functions as the founder Acharya. Hare Krishna. Someone like to share? You want to? You like to? There's a mic there. That's all right.
That he established.
Did it die? It died? A lot of technical difficulties. Oh,
That he established ISKCON's regulations and set the example for everyone to follow.
yes. Yes. Would anyone else like to share? I think. Did you have your hand raised, or did you have your hand raised? Oh, okay. If you want to share something,
I just wanted to add on to what she was saying. I just read that he was present in the centers to teach others how he wanted the temples to be run and
yeah,
how to maintain the deities, how to care for the devotees.
yeah,
But also his translating of his books are a big part of that, because his instructions on how to care for the deities and the devotees and running the temples, are all there in his books. So
yeah, yeah. Thanks. What's that noise? Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, it's a hose. It's kind of loud. All right. Yeah. So. Yes. 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 Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah. 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 Yes. Yes. Yeah. 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 Yes. As Jane was saying that, yeah, the Srila Prabhupada sending devotees to different countries and working so hard to write his books. Getting up very early in the morning. Practically it was a night, and busy throughout the day. And the purports are. Prabhupada would say that these purports are my devotional ecstasies. So these are my devotional ecstasies. And he would wake up. He would go to sleep. He'd get 3 or 4 hours of sleep, but he'd wake up 1 in the morning, whatever it was, and just start translating. And he would look at like 6 commentaries of previous teachers, and then he would think about what he wanted to say, and he would add these other commentaries into points from them, and then he would write. And Prabhupada would say that the best of me is in my books. So Prabhupada, who's the best of best, and he says even the best of him is in his books. So they're very powerful and life changing. But yeah, also this idea of him being a perfect example. So he set the example. What does it mean to be a devotee, right? Now, of course, Prabhupada was just practically inconceivable how much traveling he was doing at such an advanced age, and so little sleep, and what he was doing. It was just amazing, to say the least. But him, through his books and through his personal example, teaching us that's what it means. That's what it means that he's the founder Acharya. That means that he sets the standard, he sets the pace. Now, of course, nowadays there's so many with there being so many gurus now. That means there's so many different books that are being written. Devotees like to write. So, of course, it's okay to read those other books. For disciples to read those other books, or followers to read those other books. But one thing to keep in mind is that Srila Prabhupada's books are the main ones, and everything that comes after Prabhupada's books should be seen in the light of those books. In other words, not to replace somebody else as the. Of course, for someone to say that, oh, I'm replacing this person for Prabhupada, but in other words, we shouldn't forget Srila Prabhupada and how he, what he stood for, and how he taught, and what was his example. And that brings to the point of, when we're trying to understand Prabhupada as the founder Acharya and his unique position in ISKCON, to read books that were written about him is also very important. There's many books written about him. In other words, there's Mukunda Goswami. He was a very early disciple. He wrote a book. Yamuna Devi, she wrote a book. Satsrup Das Goswami, Srila Prabhupada, Leelamrita. My spiritual master, His Holiness Giraj Swami, just wrote this book, Juhu, the Juhu story. There's so many books out there, dozens of books. And Prabhupada, it's Prabhupada in South Africa, Prabhupada in Germany, Prabhupada in London, Prabhupada in India, and there's different views, viewpoints that devotees write from. So it's nice to read those, because then we could see how Srila Prabhupada, how he operated in real life, you could say. Because one thing is to write books. Like for example, I could write, theoretically, I could write some wonderful books, right, with some wonderful ideas in them. But how do I act in my day-to-day life? Am I worth following as a guru in my day-to-day life? And in some cases, the people just aren't. They may be able to philosophize and write so many wonderful things, but, like, for example, No offense, but Albert Einstein, which people consider extremely intelligent, super intelligent, and he was. Although reading about him and hearing about him, and there are certain things that were just kind of strange about his day-to-day life. One thing, he was just like he was said to be. Now, of course, some people say, oh, maybe it's just rumors about Albert Einstein. There's Albert Einstein haters or something, but they just theoretically accept that it's true, and it seems that it was. But he was like he was like a womanizer. Uh, means he had a hard time checking his lust, although he was so intelligent. So, that's an example that the person can be very intelligent or very qualified in so many ways, but how are they on their day-to-day life? So with Srila Prabhupada, of course, he's written so many wonderful books and about Krishna consciousness, and of course his day-to-day life is absolutely amazing as well. Modern day saint, right? But to hear about him and to read about him and to meditate on him and how he operated day to day is very important, because then we'll learn how to ourselves deal with people in a spiritual way or in a Krishna conscious way, or we'll be very inspired, by his example, and we'll try to follow. So, okay, so now that I've criticized Albert Einstein, I guess we'll continue. Any questions or comments so far? Yes. Yeah. Also, this forum here, anybody who's will be watching it later, and anybody here, it's also like open discussion in the sense that if there's any within anyone's heart, there's any kind of concerns or doubts or things that may not make sense, this is like a time to clear it. Now, I may not be able to clear it, but at least I could try, you know. Because Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that doubts, they're actually considered to be doubts in relation to Krishna consciousness. They're actually considered to be like demons, that will, what is it? I'm trying to think of that word that it's kind of slowly erodes, bhakti. It's like imperceptibly erodes bhakti, gradually, doubts. So if there's anything like that, we could try to discuss, so we could, yeah. So anyways, yes.
Do I have to speak in the mic every time?
Well, it's good because then they could hear it better,
Oh, okay.
the people.
Okay.
Unless you really don't want to, I could repeat.
I'll just speak in the mic.
Okay.
I just had a comment.
Yes.
I just appreciate you speaking about how by hearing about or meditating on or just studying Srila Prabhupada's life, we can gain certain qualities or learn about certain qualities that we might not have that would be good for us to try to cultivate in our own lives. There was this thing that I think Brahmananda Swami had said, or is he Brahmananda Prabhu? It was in this video of like memories about Prabhupada, and he said, if there's someone that you see that, they seem to look like they're carrying good qualities, you ask them, where do you get your groceries? Or things like that.
Yeah.
And with Prabhupada, it's just like, I asked Vijay Prabhu recently of like, how do we learn how to tolerate? How do we learn how to tolerate our mind? And one of his answers was just read about Prabhupada, read about those who can tolerate or those who carry qualities that you would like.
Yeah.
So I just like that you spoke about this.
All right, thank you. Yeah, there's a reason why the lives of saints are documented, and there's a reason why Prabhupada's life, there's been so much documentation of it, because it's supposed to be of a great inspiration to the followers, that, okay, I'm going to read about him, and then, we'll naturally feel inspired. You cannot not feel inspired by reading about him. So, and hearing about him. So, and yeah, the good qualities that he has will rub off. In other words, we'll also obtain those. That's it stated in the Bhagavatam. Shu shu sho shodadana sya vasudeva kata ruchi syan mahat sevya vipra punyatirtana shevanat. So it says, by serving the great souls who are completely free from vice, bad habits, bad qualities, who are completely free from vice, great service is done, and one gains a taste, one gains an attraction for hearing the messages of Krishna. In other words, one gains attraction for Krishna consciousness, which is the main quality of a devotee. They have attraction to Krishna consciousness, attraction to Krishna. And Prabhupada explains in that purport there, it's in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 16. It's a very wonderful purport. Prabhupada explains that by serving a particular person, you get the qualities of that person. So the better the person, or you can say the more saintly the person, those qualities can manifest in us too. So if we serve Srila Prabhupada by repeating what we've heard from him to others, by following what he says, by chanting Hare Krishna, then we'll have these qualities manifest within us gradually. All right, so the next quote here, Srila Prabhupada has a unique relationship with every ISKCON devotee. As the founder tribe of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, ISKCON, and the preeminent teacher and ultimate authority within our society, Srila Prabhupada has a unique relationship with every ISKCON devotee. So, for example, in the Sri Sampradaya, they have a great personality, Acharya. And Acharya to this day is held very high and worshipped. And it's been, many, many years, thousands of years. I think it's been 1,000 years actually since he appeared. So the similar thing within ISKCON is that Srila Prabhupada is the example, and he's supposed to be in the center as time goes on. So Srila Prabhupada, the empowered representative of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In the box below, lists reasons why we accept Srila Prabhupada as the empowered representative of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for the modern age. So why do we accept him as the empowered representative of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? What about Dimitri? Can you speak into that mic, please? It's dead, huh?
I wrote that he's a great example of a pure devotee, and he continued his mission.
And what was that?
And he continued his mission of
Okay.
spreading Krishna consciousness.
You wanted to say something?
He, just like Lord Chaitanya, he chanted in the streets. He spread the chanting of Hare Krishna mantra, and encouraged his disciples to do that. And today, still, we're doing that. Yeah, executing the orders of Lord Chaitanya.
Yeah. Yeah, Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, his unique position is he did what no one else has ever done, and he brought the Hare Krishna mantra to the West, and not just the West, but he spread it throughout the whole world. So, in thousands of years or hundreds of years, that has never taken place, and it's still gradually the holy name is being chanted in every town and village. So this next from the Chaitanya Mangala, it explains more about why we accept. Yes, he's a pure devotee. Yes, he spread the holy name all over the world. Here also it mentions in this Ebanama Sankirtan Tikshna Kadaga Laya Antara Asura Jivara Pelebe Katiya Yadi Papi Chadi Dharma Dure Deshe Yaya Mora Senapati Bhakta Yabetataya. Mora Senapati Bhakta. Taking the sharp sword of the congregational chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. So this is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu speaking in the Chaitanya Mangala, which there's a few different authentic authorized commentaries or biographies of Lord Chaitanya. One is Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, which Srila Prabhupada translated and commented on. One is Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, which is here. Actually, no, that's not here. This is written by Vrindavan Das Thakur, Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat. There's a nice commentary in English by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada's guru. And the other one, these are the three main ones, is Chaitanya Mangala, Lochan Das Thakur's Chaitanya Mangala. So in the Chaitanya Mangala, well, it's just this is what Lord Chaitanya says. He says, taking the sharp sword of the congregational chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, I will root out and destroy the demonic mentality in the hearts of all the conditioned souls. If some sinful people escape and, giving up religious principles, go to far off countries like America, then my Senapati Bhakta will come at that time to give them Krishna consciousness. So Senapati means like general. My general Bhakta means my, like in an army, a general. He'll come and give them the chanting of the holy name. And that's Srila Prabhupada. And just this verse, this verse from the Chaitanya Bhagavat, not this Chaitanya Mangala, but the Chaitanya Bhagavat says that my holy name will be spread. Okay, it's working. When I'm involved with technology, things always go wrong. My friends always tell me that when I ask them help for technical support. I remember we were printing out like this picture at CVS or something, and it should be very simple. It's like, you just print out the picture, but because I was there, it was very difficult. It took a long time, and then he was saying, God, this is such a simple thing, and for some reason it's so difficult. I was saying, yeah, it's because I'm there. I have funny traveling karma too. I'll tell you some stories also. Traveling, and so Prabhupada, so this is, my holy name will be chanted every town and village. That's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says. So Srila Prabhupada fulfilled that prediction. He was the main person to help fulfill that prediction. So, and there's also other quotes from scripture, hinting at Srila Prabhupada, or just like Bhaktivinoda Thakur. You have Srila Prabhupada, you have his guru Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and you have his father Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who's a great devotee, pure devotee, Acharya in this line. So he said that very soon there will be a great personality who appears, and he'll spread the chanting of the holy name throughout the world. He's talking about Srila Prabhupada. And he also, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was said, when will that day be mine where I'll be where all the Americans and Europeans and people from different countries, when will they all visit Sridham Mayapur? And when will they all congregate with the Bengali local Vaishnavas? And when will they all chant together, right? Jai Shachinanda, which is, Shachi Nandana's one who gives pleasure to Shachi. Shachi is the mother of Lord Chaitanya. It's the name for Lord Chaitanya. Jai Shachinandana Gauda Hari. When will they all get together and chant Lord Chaitanya's names and Hare Krishna mantra and dance in ecstasy? And Srila Prabhupada helped fulfill that prediction. You also have Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who he had a bunch of his disciples, brahmacharis and sannyasis, and it was a big parikrama in Vrindavan. They go around Vrindavan to the holy places. So, or maybe it was in Mayapur, but I think it was in Vrindavan. But Srila Prabhupada was there as a householder, as a young man, and he was dressed in white. And then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was giving a speech, and he was talking about preaching, spreading Krishna consciousness. And then he said, one person who was there, he was remembering how when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was speaking, he looked over into his direction, this person who was remembering. And then this person said that he turned around and he saw that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was looking at Srila Prabhupada, Abhay Charana Aravinda, right? He was looking at him. And then he said some kind of mystical, thing was happening. Sometimes like the spiritual energy is there. So he's feeling something happening, mystical. And then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur went on to say that I have a prediction. And he said, however long it will take, one of my disciples will cross the ocean and spread Krishna consciousness. And he said he'll bring the whole world back, to India. He'll bring the whole world back to the holy Dham of Mayapur and Vrindavan. And this person said that, he was looking at Srila Prabhupada, so he knew. Also, when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur met Srila Prabhupada in I think it was Allahabad, India, the devotees there at the temple, they were thinking, oh, Abhay Charana Aravinda, he's an expert. He can play mridanga, he can give class, he can manage. He should be the temple president. And then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, no, he doesn't need to be the president. He said, in due course of time, he'll do everything. So he knew. And he said that Prabhupada, he would go and meet Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and they had a very close relationship. And he said that he would just go up to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was walking back and forth on the balcony, Prabhupada would just go up And he would start, talking and conversing with him. And other disciples thought that he was just getting too close. Said, "Oh, who is this household? He's getting so close." And because they're big renunciates or whatever. And they would even tell Prabhupada sometimes, "Oh, angels." What's that saying? Angels fear where. What is it? How's it go? Tread. You know that one? Oh, I can't remember that. Is it angels fear where the foolish tread or something like that? In other words, they're saying, "Hey, you're getting close," and he would just say, "Okay, whatever." He want to get close, and he said that they would go into the room, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's room, and they would talk, so they're very close. So anyway, Srila Prabhupada, so many of these great personalities saw something in him, and even people, even ordinary people, like means ordinary people who weren't his disciples, who weren't just people in America who would see him. Like he would come out of an airplane and he would go into the airport. There's these wonderful scenes actually. I don't know if everybody's seen it. It's on YouTube, but it's also, it's a thing. It's called Following Srila Prabhupada. What it is it's all this recording of Srila Prabhupada, the footage, of him. And while the footage is going on, there's disciples of his who were there at the time, and they're giving remembrance of Srila Prabhupada. So, oh, this is Srila Prabhupada, and he's coming out of the airport, and yeah, we're all so ecstatic, and so it's amazing. So one of these remembrances, Srila Prabhupada was coming out of the airport, and there was like a janitor or something. And there's like a janitor of the airport, and then he looks at Srila Prabhupada and says, "That man's shining," like so effulgent. There's also examples of this German. He was like a guru. He brought a lot of Zen Buddhism into Germany, and he was an older man, but he was looked up to by a lot of people. And he met Srila Prabhupada in Germany, and then later he commented to the devotees. He said it was some German term, meaning that person has reached enlightenment. He could see. He actually offered dandavats to Srila Prabhupada and thanked, bowed down. So unique personality in history. And we're very fortunate to be close to him in relation to history, one generation. So the next thing, ISKCON in the future. What can be done to ensure that Srila Prabhupada remains ISKCON's founder Acharya and preeminent Shiksha Guru in the future? So Prabhupada's not Diksha Guru for us, as we were discussing in the last lesson. That's Ritvik. But Prabhupada is Shiksha Guru, instructing Guru for all of us. So what are some ways, what can be done to ensure that he remains ISKCON's founder Acharya and preeminent Shiksha Guru in the future? Write your thoughts in the box below. Krishna, Hare Krishna. Would you like to share?
I just wrote continuing to spread ISKCON's knowledge and his books.
Yeah. Yeah, by having Prabhupada's books, that by having Srila Prabhupada's books as the center, then that will help to ensure Srila Prabhupada remains ISKCON's founder Acharya. In other words, his instructions are, what should be followed. And there's a tendency after a leader leaves for people to start speculating, changing things, adding things, destroying things. Just like when Prabhupada was in India, they asked him. They said, "Oh, Swami, what will happen when you leave?" And they said, "The future." Srila Prabhupada said, "The future of my movement is very bright." He said, "Provided they follow my instructions." And he said, "If they don't follow my instructions, what can I do?" And then he gave the example of Mahatma Gandhi. He said Mahatma Gandhi, he had this whole idea of oh, my brain's working slower today. Nonviolence, and also what is it? Not agricultural. He didn't want things to become industrialized, agrarian, right? Farming and so on. He wanted things to be natural. And he said that after he left, the followers, they changed everything. They industrialized everything. They ruined everything practically, what he stood for. So Prabhupada gave that example. But he said if they follow, then it's very bright. So, but the tendency is to speculate, which means to add things, to remove things, right, that are convenient or that are not convenient for us. But that should be just given up. One thing is that we may not be able to function on the best standards, Krishna conscious standards, but we shouldn't try to change the standards just because we can't function on them. We accept them, we hold them high, and we're trying, but sometimes we see that people, they just try to change things. Oh well, Prabhupada actually meant this, but it's and of course that's a whole discussion too. What did Prabhupada's, anyways, pretty clear, but or they try to kind of like what Krishna meant by certain things, right? Like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, for example. He said in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, "I'm the light of the sun, the light of the moon." There's different things that Krishna says he is to help us remember him, right? So then in one case, Krishna says, "I am the healing herb," right? Some people say, "Oh, all right, Krishna's the healing herb." So they take that as license to go smoke weed or whatever. Of course, it seems kind of silly, but there's all different types of things. So, but if that's what Krishna meant, he would have made it more clear, or very clear, that that's what he was referring to. And aside from that, we rely on the commentaries of the Acharyas to help us understand what Krishna means, and they don't say that anywhere. So yeah, we have to keep Srila Prabhupada's standards and at the forefront of our minds, and also the forefront of the movement. And then he'll be the founder Acharya in reality. Of course, he'll always be the founder Acharya in reality, but he'll be the founder Acharya. We'll be treating him as the founder Acharya rather than just in name only. Just like Mahatma Gandhi left, and oh yeah, we're followers of Mahatma Gandhi, although we changed everything. So if as individuals or as a movement, we don't want to change anything Srila Prabhupada gives, but we want to we want to try our best to follow, and that is much more appreciated rather than just speculating, changing, adding, subtracting. So, does anybody have any other ideas in relation to that? Yes.
I was thinking and acknowledging Prabhupada in all of our accomplishments. Like in all the books that I've read that are written by his disciples, it's always dedicated to Srila Prabhupada. And I think about, how I've come to Krishna consciousness and all the people I have to thank, and all of them lead up to Prabhupada coming to the U.S. to spread Krishna consciousness, and that's why I'm able to practice.
Yes. Yeah, great. Yeah, all of our accomplishment, everything that good, right, stemming from Srila Prabhupada. And yeah, because Srila Prabhupada, he came and he right had so many disciples, and then they had followers. Like for example, we say, well, we'll have an in-house example here, but so Srila Prabhupada comes to America, and then he spreads Krishna consciousness throughout the world. And then some of his disciples, Mahatma Prabhu Gunagrahi Das Goswami, they start this temple, ISKCON San Diego, and then they're preaching here, and then they make some devotees, right? And then they join the temple, and then these devotees, they go out and distribute books, right? And then they go to Mesa College, and they meet, what was Brajamandala's name before? Blanca. Then they meet Blanca, right? And they give her a book. And then she visits the temple, and then she starts practicing Krishna consciousness. Then she gets initiated by another representative of Srila Prabhupada who is spreading Krishna consciousness, Holiness Radhanath Swami, right? And then she meets Jean, and I think she was right your main influence in Krishna consciousness. Still, yeah. So it's a whole succession, right? And then Jean, yeah, he may tell someone about Krishna consciousness and be their influence, and then they may tell someone, and then it goes on like that. So yeah, it's good to keep in mind. And this in general, it's like this principle in general, this gratefulness or gratitude. Like, food doesn't come from Trader Joe's or Sprouts or something. It goes far back. The farmers and then there's the rain and the sun and the Krishna and the demigod. There's a whole system. Or just for example, like Dimitri's been going out on book distribution lately, distributing Prabhupada's books. So it's a whole operation. I mean, we have a BBT in LA, and then they have to get the books printed in China. Then they have to be shipped on a boat, and then they have to have a warehouse, and then we got to pay the bills for the warehouse, and then somebody has to drive up to LA and get them, and then someone has to graphic design them, and then this and that, and then eventually they come here, and then they can't just sit here, right? Or they could, but collect dust. But we don't want them to do that. So then, the devotees and the congregation, right? You're also managing, Gene, right? You're managing a book rack. Oh, nice. 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 You put that book there. Oh, that's great. You put cards in the book too? Oh. Oh, good. Yeah. 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 So the books come, and then they're there, and then there has to be some plan to distribute them. So someone has to go out to the book rack, and then someone has to go out to Balboa Park here or there, and then we contact these people, and then they get a book, and they get Prabhupada's book. There's a whole. We should start off at Prabhupada writing in the Radha Damodar temple. Writing his, typing. Prabhupada actually he'd actually type with, his fingers. It was an old typewriter. So starting that, and then him coming to America on a boat, Jaladuta, with his books, trunk of his. It was the first canto, the first few parts of the first canto, and he came, and then him establishing the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, and then now it's been going on all these years, and the operation's still going on. So it's amazing, operation. So to be conscious, to be grateful, to be have gratitude for Srila Prabhupada, always to remember, that's important. So, and we should try to do what we can. I mean, it's advised that we have books always with us. Like we take a walk, we have some books with us. We go to the doctors, the dentist, wherever we go, we have some books with us or in our car, right? And some Krishna Lounge cards or whatever cards of the temple. And this is good because you never know who you're going to meet. You may not be out there trying to, hey, here, take a book, or here, take. You may do that, but you may not. But sometimes, we're talking with people. They may say, "Oh, hey, you look really peaceful. What's your secret?" So, I got a book here. Here you go, take this. Or they say, just you're talking with someone, they're nice, and they say, yeah, I've been thinking about meditation and yoga. Oh, really cool. I got some book right here. Take it. Or yeah, so you never know. So it's nice to have those, and we have plenty. So if anybody needs books, you could. All right, the last quote here is, "I am simply the bearer of the message from Lord Chaitanya." This is a letter from Srila Prabhupada. "I also thank you very much for your appreciation of my books and letters, and for my speaking in the meetings. They are not my words, as I have repeatedly informed you that I am simply the bearer of the message from Lord Chaitanya through the disciplic succession, and I do not make any addition or subtraction. Similarly, if you all carry these words successively, then the transcendental parampara system will be exactly maintained, and people in general will be benefited." So that's what we're just talking about. People will be benefited. All right. 4. All right. We're making progress. ISKCON gurus. Hot topic. Lesson topics. Attitude of an ISKCON guru. Gurus and ISKCON authorities' instructions. Gurus outside of ISKCON. Attitude of an ISKCON guru. What do you consider is the appropriate attitude in general for an ISKCON guru, current and future, in regard to the teachings of Srila Prabhupada, the authority structure within ISKCON? Now, I guess we better take a look at the authority structure before you write your thoughts in that box. Okay, so the authority structure you have Srila Prabhupada at the top there. You have the GBC body, governing body commissioner. This is the commission. This is a large group of devotees within ISKCON, and they manage certain zones throughout the world. They've divided it in zones, following Srila Prabhupada. Actually, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, when he left, he wanted the Gaudiya Math to do this, the institution he set up, but when he left, they didn't follow his instructions. That created some problems, actually, because then there were a few people who were wanting to be the Acharya, the main Acharya. which we don't do that here also because it's problematic if you have one Acharya. Imagine you have one Acharya for the whole of ISKCON. What happens if he falls into Maya? You got thousands of people, disheartened and chaos. So, Prabhupada wanted GBC, means devotees to manage zones of the world to keep devotees happy and healthy and, together and focused on Krishna. So, we have our GBC here, Bhajanarayan Swami. He manages Boise, Portland, Los Angeles, Laguna Beach, San Diego, Hawaii, Las Vegas, Phoenix, and Tucson. So if they got any big problems, I call him up and say. And he visits those places and tries to help in whatever way he can. Of course, it's kind of a big zone, to tell you the truth. But and then there's the sannyas ministry. This is the ministry that manages sannyasis. Means if there's some complaints or if there's some problems with a particular sannyasi, the sannyas ministry will contact them and try to work things out. There's a Guru Services Committee, which is a committee who helps with the gurus, right? And then there's the Guru. And then there's regional body. This is the helper of the GBC, sannyasi, temple president, Namhata coordinator. Namhata, these house programs where educational kirtans and so on. Temple residents and disciples. And then there's congregation disciples. Now, of course, this is it's just a chart on a piece of paper, and it's not meant to what does it say here? What's the note? The above chart is for educational purposes only, is not an administrative mandate. It illustrates that ISKCON members all serve under the direction of Srila Prabhupada and the GBC. And in ISKCON, we all have multiple authorities whom we should respect and serve in a cooperative spirit. So in other words, the guru, he's not just like a lone island. It means he works with other devotees, with the GBC, with the temple presidents. Srila Prabhupada created a whole system to help devotees. There's the temple president, there's the GBC, there's Brahmins, right? Senior learned persons to help us. There's sannyasis. There's a whole system to help us, right, advance. And the Diksha Guru works within that system. So that's the main thing here. Now, of course, this chart is not by any means to deflect or to demean the Guru, like he's way down there on the chart or something. But it's just to demonstrate that we all work together. Yeah. The Guru has a very special place as the direct representative of Krishna, and should be respected on the same level as Krishna and so on. So that's what could be a little confusing about this chart, to be a little honest, or to be honest. So anyways, based on that, we'll go back. What do you consider is the appropriate attitude in general for an ISKCON guru, current and future, in regard to the teachings of Srila Prabhupada, the authority structure within ISKCON? Write down your thoughts, please. The pen doesn't. That pen doesn't work, huh? Okay. Wait. Would you like to share, Gene?
Practices and works, practices and preaches in daily life as an example. Abides by the pillars of God. With answers and works.
Yes. Yeah, so acts and practices, right, in his daily life, according to the teachings of Prabhupada, and works, cooperates with the GBC. Yeah, basic. Yeah, these are the main things. Okay, thank you.
Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Okay, so 24. So this gurus and ISKCON authority instructions. Um, so far, we've taught this course once, twice. This is the third time. So far, we haven't done a skip. Um, yeah, what we've done is we've just discussed. Yes.
I just have a question
Okay.
about the attitude of the
Yes.
ISKCON guru. You know, the relationship between the guru and disciple is special.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes the guru makes decisions on, you know, the spiritual practice of his disciple that might not necessarily be like exactly 100% in line with like the GBC and what they're saying is this right thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like, you know, it's to help the student not to, or to help the disciple not to take the disciple away from, you know,
Yeah.
the practice of bhakti yoga and the instructions of Srila Prabhupada, but it's a way to help the disciple.
Yeah.
You kind of get what I'm saying?
Yeah. 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 I understand what you're saying. Yeah, it's a challenge because there's GBC, there's the GBC, and then there's Guru, yeah, and sometimes they may disagree, or sometimes the Guru may think something's beneficial that the GBC doesn't think is beneficial, and there's all different types of things like that. So But by all means, they should try to work with each other. That's the principle of working with each other, and so everybody's on the same page. And also open discussion. I mean, like I have with my spiritual master and my GBC, Bajranarayan Swami. We've spent many years together, trying to work together. um, and I run things by both of them, and my spiritual master, of course, he's very wise, and you know, so it's all been good. But generally, the spiritual master, he's careful, he's cautious that that he knows he's been around for a while. He knows how things are. So, for example, many years ago, my guru was telling me, "Oh, you can come to this japa retreat. Be good for a spiritual life." And he said, based on your letter, I assume that you asked your authorities, because I wouldn't want to take you away from the temple programs. And he says, but your authorities are wise and kind, so I think everything should be fine. But just this idea of open communication, like, yeah, there should be open communication between the guru, the GBC, between all of them. And then everybody's on the same page. And then if someone's stuck in the middle, a disciple or somebody, say, okay, well, maybe you two could work it out, and but it could be a little complicated, yeah. But Krishna, if we're sincere, then things will work out. So what should we do? Because so far we've just discussed this point. So we could discuss it if you like this, perform a skit showing. We could just think how there's an appropriate and inappropriate way of dealing with a situation wherein the instructions given by one's local ISKCON authority differ from the instructions given by one's guru. So what's an inappropriate way of dealing with that? An appropriate way of dealing with a situation wherein the instructions given to one's local ISKCON authority differ from the instructions given by one's guru. So what's an inappropriate way and what's an appropriate way? Kind of a challenging question, huh? First of all, what would be a situation? Can anybody think of a situation in which this problem would come up? You have something?
That's a tough one. I guess if it's conflicting, if they're telling you to do something and then your guru says, no, you shouldn't do that, so then what do you do? I don't know. I guess is that something you would just bring up first to the guru, that there's a conflict, or I don't know what the appropriate.
Yeah. An example?
Yeah, I have been around.
Well, an example would be like,
For someone outside the temple.
yeah. See, a lot of these things, they don't. It doesn't really come up so much. This problem, like your guru says, oh, I want you to go to Africa and preach. I want you to set up a temple there or whatever. I want you to go help there. And the GBC says, well, we kind of need your help here. That could be an example. That the guru wants you to go somewhere. Like the guru wants you to go somewhere and do something specific, but then the GBC wants something else, right? Now, one particular case, Srila Prabhupada. Here, I could think of a real life case. So Srila Prabhupada, he was in India, and he was telling my guru that, as a young brahmachari, that you could travel with me, right? And then my guru said, well, Srila Prabhupada, how do we work that out with my GBC? How because he may want me to do something else. In other words, he may feel like he needs my help, and And how do we work that out with them? And then Prabhupada said something. He said by mutual consultation, by speaking with each other, by working it out. So, there's so many different cases where this could come up, and there's so many different, examples of it. And if your GBC is like, goes off the rails and says, oh yeah, Srila Prabhupada just said you don't have to eat meat and fish, but you can't eat meat and eggs, but Srila Prabhupada actually meant you could eat. Cause sorry for bringing up the example, but says some stupid thing. Oh, because Prabhupada, he's a Bengali, and actually Bengalis, they eat fish, and Prabhupada, he didn't really mean it to say not to eat fish. He actually meant you could eat fish. He starts saying a bunch of weird stuff. And then your guru is saying, well, I think he's gone a little, strange, and I don't think you should follow him. Let's say he's encouraging you to eat fish. Oh, here, this prasadam. Your guru says, well, that's off. Sorry, don't follow him. You say, okay, you don't follow him. But if they're both right, the guru's right and the GBC is right, there's just differences of opinion. Then you say, what am I supposed to do? I'm a disciple here. You're both my authorities. Can you please work it out? What am I supposed to do here? And you just humbly surrender and say you can't work it out. And then hopefully they come to some conclusion. Now, even if that doesn't work, maybe they don't come to a conclusion. Then they have to go to, these different committees, guru committee, this committee, that committee, work something out. So, but generally it will be worked out simply. It won't be so complicated. So now, gurus outside of ISKCON, list in the table below some of the benefits of accepting Diksha and Shiksha gurus within ISKCON. So, in other words, the benefits of accepting gurus, Shiksha and Diksha within ISKCON versus gurus outside of ISKCON. What are the benefits of accepting Diksha and Shiksha gurus within ISKCON versus outside of ISKCON, which we're going to discuss more in a minute. You want to say something, Jacob? Okay. Would you like to say something? Uh-oh. Not good signs. No, I was joking.
I'll say something.
Okay. What's the benefit? Well, I don't know. I'm having second thoughts about this. I'm just joking. I know you're not having second thoughts. Vaisheshika Prabhu, by the way, will be in Laguna Beach, Long Beach, Los Angeles. I think, is it this Friday? I think it's the 25th. I don't think it's this Friday. I think it's the next. Does anybody know? Do you two? Maybe?
When the 25th is? That's pretty soon.
What's the day? Yeah. It's the. Where am I, anyways? I don't even know where I am.
That's Friday. Yeah, this Friday.
Friday is the what? The 25th?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he'll be in town the 25th, 26th, 27th.
He'll be in San Diego.
Well, not San Diego. I could tell you later the different details, but what made me think about Vaisheshika Prabhu is I've heard that they have some attraction to him as a guru.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, we were talking. Gene and I were talking about initiating spiritual masters and meeting Vaisheshik Prabhu and our
Have you met
Rena
him
and I's
before?
desire to meet.
Have you met him before?
No, we haven't. I mean, just through his lectures.
He's so enthusiastic.
About how do we were talking about how do we possibly find out the possibility of him being in town
Oh.
an hour ago,
Okay. Nice.
and you come with all the answers.
Nice. Yeah.
Krishna miracles.
I want to share a little bit. That's okay. Well, I just want to briefly say that before we moved here, we were watching his videos, like at least one of his lectures every day for about like a month or two, and just really getting like just really more and more every day wanting to meet him. And like Krishna arranged for us to move here. And we were like, well, there's a lot of cons to us moving to California, but there's like also positive things too. And one of them being like maybe we'll get to meet Vaisheshika Prabhu. So yeah.
Yep, you're gonna meet him soon. He's so enthusiastic. He's like his enthusiasm is what do you call it's in fact yeah, that, and it's also you can't stop his enthusiasm, it's like he's just, exuding enthusiasm, so
How do we find ways to possibly meet, understand what their
yeah.
attitude is? Maybe can you start like a WhatsApp, like so we can all have this discussion? I think I would love to know.
I'll have the information.
Disciples Course WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Open communication.
Yeah. 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 He'll be in Los Angeles the 25th. He'll be having a reading there, I think 11 to 12. And then Saturday, he'll be um, at Long Beach Temple in the evening. It's from 5:30 onwards with Tukaram Prabhu. And then Sunday, I believe he'll be there in Laguna Beach. I think it's they usually start it in the morning. It's like 10 to 1, something like that. So
We'll talk after.
okay, so what were you going to say?
Yeah, about the benefits of accepting Diksha and Shiksha Guru within ISKCON. I would say like you're gonna have like this the strict adherence to Srila Prabhupada's teachings,
Yes.
and you're not. There's less potential for one to be confused.
Yes. See, there are other Gaudiya Vaishnava groups in the world right now, and Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON is the just factually speaking, or it's the main movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that's spreading the fastest throughout the world. Which the other ones there's just no comparison within the Gaudiya Vaishnava followers of Lord Chaitanya. But there are other groups and there are other gurus, and they're gurus. They're not, they're sincere. They're surrendered, and they're qualified. But one of the values of taking initiation from a devotee or a disciple of Srila Prabhupada or a grand disciple of Srila Prabhupada is that we are connected directly with Srila Prabhupada and his movement, and we are seeing things as he wanted us to see things, and just being connected very intimately to such a great personality who's predicted in scripture and so many things. I mean, and where these other gurus, we should be extremely respectful and, but take the opportunity, to be connected. So, all right, there's a few quotes here I'll just read, and this is in relation to devotees within ISKCON back in Srila Prabhupada's, when Srila Prabhupada was physically present, associated with other Vaishnava groups. And some of Srila Prabhupada's stances on that and his, service of Srila Prabhupada and our Guru Parampara. Those who accept the service of Diksha Guru or Shiksha Guru in ISKCON are required to be exemplary in representing Srila Prabhupada's teaching in their words and personal behavior. The Shiksha Guru gives spiritual instruction and inspiration on behalf of Srila Prabhupada and our Guru Parampara. The Diksha Guru gives spiritual instruction, inspiration, formal initiation, and a spiritual name. And later imparts the sacred Gayatri mantras to a qualified disciple as a service to Srila Prabhupada and our Guru Parampara. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's governing body. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, at the time of his departure, requested all his disciples to form a governing body and conduct missionary activities cooperatively. He did not instruct a particular man to become the next Acharya, but just after his passing away, his leading secretaries made plans without authority to occupy the post of Acharya, and they split into two factions over who the next Acharya would be. It's a big mess, actually. Sorry, but it was a big mess, and legally, and over properties, and it was like really, when he left, darkness set in. But just consequently, both factions were asar, or useless, is Srila Prabhupada's purport of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, because they had no authority, having disobeyed the order of the spiritual master. Obey Srila Prabhupada, but not follow GBC. When they say they don't like ISKCON and the GBC, they're really saying they don't like to follow my order. That means they don't like my order. That means they don't have faith in my order. That means they don't have faith in me. That means Guru Aparad. To say they have faith in me is just hypocrisy. So we have to have faith in Srila Prabhupada and his followers. And of course, everything could be taken out of context, but this means that I'm a GBC, for example, but I also have to follow Srila Prabhupada, and then I could say, I may be able to say that, okay, you have faith in Srila Prabhupada, you should also have faith in what I'm saying and what I'm doing, because I'm following Srila Prabhupada. But if I'm not following Srila Prabhupada, I say, oh yeah, just have faith in me and what I'm saying and what I'm doing. But what if I'm not following? Now, of course, this could get into the weird realm of fault finding and criticism of GBC and followers of Srila Prabhupada. But intelligence means to have a balance. That we have to be very, very careful and very, very humble, and to follow. And mainly that's what Srila Prabhupada is stressing here. But there were cases in which the GBC went off in Srila Prabhupada's time. And Srila Prabhupada said, you should have said something to me about this person. They're doing weird stuff, actually. I think they were serving, I thought that they served the deity. We were talking about fish earlier. I thought that they served the deity's fish. It was a weird. Anyways, so Prabhupada didn't like that the devotees didn't say anything. But, the balance is there. And generally people at all times are sincere, at least, in their attempts and their endeavors. So we should also give some room for forgiveness and for some tolerance, and not everybody, it's hard to find anybody who's perfect in any way. So we shouldn't be quick just to throw devotees away. Maybe not, obviously not literally, but metaphysically throw them away. Oh, they made a mistake, or they don't know what they're doing. So Prabhupada says we have to have faith. Better you should stick. Okay, never try to hear someone who is not in our line. gurus outside of ISKCON. Better you should stick to hearing from authorized persons like your spiritual master or experienced godbrothers, but never try to hear someone who is not in our line. It is simply a waste of time to hear them again, hear and then again have to rectify the mistake. This is a letter to Hamza Dutta. So there's so many books out there, there's so many lectures, there's so many gurus, and we can learn from other traditions. We can learn from other traditions. But there is a cautionary thing Srila Prabhupada saying here. And generally, when we talk about, like, we should be satisfied hearing from Srila Prabhupada. We should be satisfied hearing from our Guru, Maharaj. We should be satisfied by hearing from our other devotees. We don't have to have, like, our ears have to be always searching other sources and people and lectures and gurus and in essence, it's the same. The practices, the philosophy, the same of ISKCON and other Gaudiya groups, but there are some slight differences. Philosophically, there's certain emphasis. So in other words, we're followers of Prabhupada. Prabhupada Anugas. We're followers of Srila Prabhupada. He has a certain mood. He's trying to communicate a certain thing. And if we go hear from somebody else, there may not be in essence something wrong with that. But Prabhupada was very cautious of that, and the reason being is because if they say even one word he said, people could become confused, right? And it could get also very weird in the sense of, people would say, oh, well, just, Prabhupada, he gave you like he gave you the ABCs of spiritual life. I could give you the PhD. In other words, Prabhupada, it was simplistic. He presented Krishna consciousness very simplistic and not advanced. But we would say that is bogus. That's a misconception. By following Srila Prabhupada, one could reach the highest levels of bhakti. Not that one has to go to somebody else or another group to reach the higher stages of bhakti. Which a lot of the times they say that Srila Prabhupada's lectures and his general preaching was very basic, means sticking to the basics, and he did Bhagavad Gita, but that's very important. and you repeat a message over and over and over again because you want to emphasize something. And even in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela, his pastimes, they wouldn't discuss publicly these things about Radha and Krishna and Rasa Leela and these different things, advanced topics. They wouldn't discuss publicly. So Srila Prabhupada wouldn't discuss publicly, or his guru, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So usually when they say we could help you advance and this and that, they're talking about higher things of Krishna and Krishna's Leela, which is there, but it needs to gradually be entered into and understood. But generally, a lot of these, or at least some of these other groups, they like to jump to these things faster, which we say is not the best. Could cause havoc. So, myself, I listen to my guru's lectures. I listen to His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami's lectures. I listen to Prabhupada's lectures. And I listen to lectures in the temple. Sometimes I listen to Bhakti Vikas Swami lectures, and that's it. Just a few. And we can listen to many, but we want to make sure that they have the right ideas as presented by Srila Prabhupada. And a lot of these other groups, in essence, they have the right ideas, but they may have some wrong ideas. And aside from having wrong ideas, they may have some different emphasis than what Srila Prabhupada had. And that's a difficulty. Because then we might start getting critical of Prabhupada, which is like poisonous. It's absolutely poisonous. All right. I have now issued orders that all my disciples should avoid all my godbrothers. They should not have any dealings with them, nor even correspondence, nor should they give them any of my books, or should they purchase any of their books. Neither should you visit any of their temples. Please avoid them. So at one point, Prabhupada, he felt that his disciples were trying to undermine his position. For example, he was in Los Angeles, and they were like keeping his mail. They didn't let him go into the Rath Yatra cart to start with. They had him join later. Um, on one of his books, they didn't put his Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. They just wrote Swami Prabhupada or something like that. So in other words, Prabhupada was feeling that my disciples are they're trying to undermine my position. So he called Tamal Krishna Goswami from London. He's in London. He said, "Come to LA immediately." So then Tamal Krishna Goswami came into Prabhupada's room, and Prabhupada's head was down. And he said he hasn't been eating for days. He was so disturbed. And then he said, he said, "I want to leave LA immediately. Get me out of here immediately." And then Tamal Krishna Goswami said, "Where do you want to go? Do you want to go to New York?" He said something like that. He said, "No, the poison is entered there." He said, "Well, where do you want to go? Do you want to go to Europe?" And Prabhupada was saying, "No, no, no." Prabhupada went all the way to India because he said that this was spreading throughout the movement. This, kind of undermining Prabhupada, not seeing him in the right light. And the reason was because there were some disciples of Srila Prabhupada's who were associating with Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers in India, and they were critical of Prabhupada. So the disciples in India, Srila Prabhupada's disciples, they started sending letters to different devotees in America, a little critical of Prabhupada. And not in a super direct way, but it was a subtle, all this was, you could say, subtle. But anyways, so it was problematic actually. And so yeah, Prabhupada went to India. And then, like for example, I don't want to say it because I'm not absolutely sure at this point, so I won't say it. But the God brothers were critical, so he's saying just stay away from them. And that transpired after Srila Prabhupada left. There was other Gaudiya groups, and they were very critical of Prabhupada. And they're trying to take devotees from ISKCON to their gurus, and it actually still happens. But so therefore, like, it's not that we're so neophyte, we're so non-universal that we don't, see other Gaudiya groups as Vaishnavas and as our brothers and whatever, but we do. But because there's been so many problems in the past, while Prabhupada was here and after Prabhupada left, therefore these things are being stated, within this course. Be a little careful, kind of, respect from a distance type of thing. So, all right. So this is last quote in this lesson. There's additional quotes that you could read if you like on your free time. Give him prasadam, honor him as an elder Vaishnava, but he cannot speak or lecture. All Vaishnavas are authorities to preach Krishna consciousness, but still there are degrees of authorities. On the whole, if this Ban Maharaj, this is Prabhupada's godbrother, motive is to suppress me, and that is why he has come here, how we can receive him? He has already given one professor a wrong impression. He may be treated as a guest. If he comes to our center, give him prasadam, honor him as an elder Vaishnav, but he cannot speak or lecture. If he wants to lecture, you could tell him that there is already another speaker scheduled. That's all. Letter to Satsvarup. So, yeah, they're the God brothers and also the disciples undermining. So and again, it didn't end when Prabhupada left. Even to this day, there's still some of that going on. So we do have the temple's open for everybody, despite what Gaudiya group they're from. But we just want people from other groups or devotees from other groups just to be respectful. That's all. You could come here, you chant, you engage in the process of devotional service, you associate with devotees, but don't try to oh, Prabhupada doesn't know who he's talking to, directly or indirectly say that, or hey, my guru's in town, come on up and he'll initiate you tomorrow. And then you get initiated from another group, and it there's, as far as I could see, there's a lot of hating on ISKCON, undermining of Prabhupada's institution, and just the general stigma sometimes of devotees in other groups. It's a whole life changing experience, which can be difficult. So, anyways, does anybody have any questions or comments on that? Yes.
I have one. Yeah, before I had a lot of confusion about, why can't, other Gaudiya Vaishnavas come and speak at the temples. And,
Yes.
You kind of clarified it in me a way, because it could confuse people.
Like one example, sorry, I'm going to hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Just one example about confusing people. Prabhupada explains that there's the fall of the jiva, right? The jiva is in the spiritual world. He becomes envious of Krishna. He falls down into this material world. That's Prabhupada's understanding. Once we're in Krishna Lila, there's a whole letter Prabhupada writes about that. Now, of course, within ISKCON, there's devotees within ISKCON who see differently. They take quotes from Prabhupada's books and they go either way. Well, we didn't really fall from the spiritual world. We came from the Brahmajyoti, and there's different ideas. But there's this letter. It's like super clear. Prabhupada was saying, once we're in Krishna Lila, or Prabhupada would say, our original Krishna consciousness, right? Things like that. So, for example, in other Gaudiya groups, they say, no, we didn't fall from the spiritual world. And in other words, Prabhupada's conception is not accurate. That's one example. Or another example, like I was saying, Prabhupada gives ABCs. We'll give PhD. They say things like that. We'll by associating with us, by becoming initiated by us, you'll be able to enter the higher realms of bhakti, not by this, ISKCON and American gurus and all this. And by the way, to see a guru as American, that's just wrong in itself, because it says you shouldn't see a Goswami as American or Indian. In other words, there's an Indian Goswami, there's American Goswami. The Indian one's better because he's Indian. The other one, American, he has a sinful past and just never going to be qualified. That's kind of like the Ritvik idea. But these people aren't absolute Ritviks, but there's some underlying thing. They see things from this conception. And by the way, just because someone's born in India doesn't mean they're a saint, for God's sake. I mean, the biggest demons in Krishna Lila were all from India. Hiranyakashipu, Kamsa, Shusha. They're all Indians, right? So, yeah, it's a wrong conception. Because I've had people, they come here, we've had people come here and they say, oh yeah, there's this, elder Indian guru, and he may be super advanced, and he may be Paramahamsa pure devotee. I'm not saying he's not, but this kind of conception that, oh well, he's never engaged in sinful activities in his life, and he hasn't even tasted a beer, whatever they say, so pure. That may all be true. But just because that is there doesn't mean that there's an American Vaishnava who became super advanced, like Vaisheshika Prabhu, for example. Become extremely advanced, or so many of the gurus, Radhanath Swami or my spiritual master, through Prabhupada's mercy, through following, they became super advanced. They're discounting that, so they're seeing in a mundane way. So, anyways, sorry for my tangent.
Thank you, Prabhu. Now, I was just gonna say, members of other Vaishnava groups, coming to speak at ISKCON temples could create confusion. Just the simple fact that people ask them, okay, who's your guru in ISKCON temples, and it just like distracts away from like the fact that Srila Prabhupada set up these temples in the first place.
Yeah.
And it's not that we're biased, it's just that it creates confusion. Just simple that it creates confusion.
Yeah, and generally the whole principle of gurus, like people, a lot of the times they want to bring people to their guru. they want to introduce. Like if you have a great friend, a best friend, a great friend, you want to introduce people, But if you introduce someone to a guru who's not in Prabhupada's line, you could say, then yeah, people, they may miss the opportunity of, being a Prabhupada follower, in in the most deep way. In other words, they may get initiated by this other person, which is not like, it's still initiation. It's still authentic. It's still true. It just really it could create a lot of, problems. So. But anyways, it's in this course, and therefore we're discussing it. So I know maybe it could seem a little awkward to discuss it, but yeah. It's kind of like if somebody comes to ISKCON and then devotees spend a lot of time and energy cultivating them and helping them and, so many different things, right? And then somebody just comes by and says, okay, well, we're taking you here to somewhere else, to someone else, and you're going to get initiated from this person. It's kind of like, you spend so much time raising a child or something and, taking care of the child. Then somebody just one day comes by and just snatches your child, God forbid, but comes and snatches your child and says, oh, we're taking them, sorry. Similar principle. So, all right, is there any other question or comment on this most pleasing topic? Okay. All right, so we're making steady progress. We've completed 4 lessons now. Now we're going into Unit 2, which is Lesson 5, Guru Padashraya, means taking shelter of Srila Prabhupada, taking shelter of a Diksha Guru. How to take shelter of a Diksha Guru. Then selecting a Guru, that's Lesson 6, how to select a Guru. And then you have initiation vows, Lesson 7, Guru Puja, how we worship the Guru, Guru Seva, how we serve the Guru, Vani Vapu, the instructions of the Guru, the form of the Guru, rejection of the spiritual master, God forbid, we have to do that. Presenting one's Guru, relationships within ISKCON, and then that's it. So, seems like a lot, but actually, we're about halfway through. Yeah, at least in terms of pages, but some of these also go a little faster. Like we're able to do 3, like so far we've done 2 lessons each Sunday, but sometimes we'll be able to do 3, maybe even 4 if we're real enthusiastic, but yeah, we're like halfway done. So, alrighty. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.